My name is Aleksander Wierzejski and welcome to Poland Daily. Christmas is a true family holiday, and for Poles it often means traveling across the country to see their loved ones. Unfortunately, it is also a time when more accidents take place on the highways, including many fatal ones. However, according to the police, this year's accident rate was lower than any before.
On the first day of Christmas last year, police noted 12 fatal crash victims. This year, there were only 2 such accidents. Of the total 43 crashes, 60 people were wounded. Since last Friday, 5,000 police officers performed over 10,000 checks on drivers and detected alcohol in 143 tests. Of course, the drunken drivers were detained. The good news is the Polish roads are safer this year.
The thawing relations on the Korean peninsula continues. Today, representatives of North and South Korea signed an agreement on the restoration of rail and road connections between both countries in Kaesong.
Today's agreement is the result of opening a dialogue between the Korean states. There have already been 2 summits of the North Korean and South Korean leaders, Kim Jong-un and President Lee, earlier this year. Full reactivation of rail and road connections between the Korean states will be possible after the abolition of US sanctions imposed on North Korea due to the nuclear program implemented by this country. Their restoration particularly depends on the authorities in Seoul, which count on the fact that the matter of railway connections from Seoul through Pyeongchang to the Chinese border and further through Russia to Europe will facilitate the export of South Korean goods.
Jugendamt, or in German Youth Office, is a name associated by many Polish families with fear, anger and the tragedy of losing a child. Jugendamt is an office which is supposed to fight families for children whose parents are unable to raise them, yet it often abuses its power and separates Polish children from their relatives in order to give them a German upbringing. Our reporter Marta Szramowska tried to find out why it is so difficult to tackle the problem.
Joanna Wulfert had no contact with her son for 10 years. In 2008, the German Jugendamt took away her only child. According to Joanna, her son was intentionally brainwashed and Germanized. Last year, her son unexpectedly called her.
Powiedział bardzo ważne zdanie.
He said this to me: I ended up in a place where I never wanted to be. I'm calling from a telephone booth, so you wouldn't have any contact with me. I won't give you my address, so you wouldn't be able to find me. I'm going through very tough depression after leaving my home, after the deaths of my beloved grandpa and grandma, and after my girlfriend left me. He told me that he couldn't make sense of anything. We talked for 45 minutes, but for almost 35 we simply cried over the phone. He made it clear a few times that it was to be our last conversation ever.
Po śmierci ukochanej babci
Joanna works for the International Association Against Discrimination of Children in Germany, helping parents who went through similar tragedies. The Union of Mothers of the association appealed to the Polish government for aid with the problem of Jugendamt. The Polish Ministry of Justice tries to convince the German side to allow the children who are to be taken to foster families to be given to Polish foster families instead of German ones. It's a very important matter for us, since we're talking about real human tragedies affecting the Polish children. The Polish state should have done something about this a long time ago, and right now we are indeed trying to fix this. But you must remember that it's extremely difficult. It's not that easy, since the European institutions often take the side of the countries that hold more power in the EU, like Germany. Even so, we keep on trying. The Ministry of Justice tries to make Jugendamt consider the nationality of the children. The children are often sent to foster families which are from an entirely different culture, an example to Muslim or homosexual parents. When the new regulations come into force, nationality of the children will be taken into consideration, and that may help to at least partially resolve the issue. According to Stefan Hambura, an attorney at law living in Germany who helps Poles in such instances, there is almost no part of family life that can be invaded by the Jugendamt. Even if the biological parents are allowed to meet their children under the supervision of someone from the Jugendamt, they can't even show any human emotions. They aren't allowed to cry or even hug their children. They are forbidden from showing the most basic motherly or fatherly emotions. In my opinion, that might be the worst in all this. The Jugendamt office gained most of its infamy during the Second World War, when it was taking away children from the countries occupied by Germany and stripping them of their national identity. Thousands of Polish children became victims of this form of oppression.
This Christmas, the faithful came out in droves to visit Poland's holiest monastery, Jasna Góra, in Częstochowa. The nativity scene, this year also containing Pope John Paul II, Pope Benedict XVI and Pope Francis, proved to be one of the main attractions.
Poland is famous for its tradition of building Christmas cribs to commemorate the birth of Jesus Christ. One of the most famous cribs, often visited by Poles and tourists alike, is the one at the Jasna Góra sanctuary in the city of Częstochowa. This year, apart from depicting the Holy Family, the creators of the crib added figures of three popes: John Paul II, Benedict XVI and Francis. All of them went on pilgrimages to the Jasna Góra sanctuary. Christmas cribs are a long-standing tradition in Poland. Many Polish families go from church to admire the figures of newborn Jesus, Mary and Joseph, the three kings bearing gifts, angels, shepherds and many more. The figures are often mechanized, the cribs themselves are illuminated in various colors, and Christmas carols are being played from mounted speakers, all to make Christmas a special time of the year.
Today, the 21-meter-long Kosatka Monster Project yacht was supposed to start in the famous Sydney-Hobart race with its 22-man strong crew who flew from the Sopot Yacht Club in northern Poland. Instead, the boat was not allowed to leave Sydney Harbour, as it turned out that its insurance paper has been falsified.
Sydney-Hobart Regatta is a dream for many sailors, including those from the Sopot Yacht Club. They chartered the Kosatka Monster project and flew to Sydney, Australia, only to learn that their dream boat is unable to race because its insurance is false. It was the third time Polish yachtsmen chartered that particular boat, and no problems had occurred before. The Racing Commission of Sydney-Hobart reviewed the documents and found that Kosatka Monster project's insurance has been invalid for 2 years. As a result, the Sopot Yacht Club has demanded $315,000 from the yacht's owner, Econautics Racing International Limited. This year marks the 20th anniversary of the disastrous Sydney-Hobart race, where 6 sailors lost their lives and 5 yachts sank in an extraordinarily strong storm.
And that's it for tonight's Poland Daily News, but stay tuned for Poland Daily Weather and following Poland Daily Business.
Welcome to Poland Daily Weather. Let's take a look at the forecast for tonight. We are expecting showers across the country. In the east and northeast, some snowfall will be mixed in with the rain. The temperatures will range from 6 degrees in Szczecin to 0 degrees in Białystok. And now over to tomorrow. Another wet day across the country. Some chances of the sun peeking through the clouds only in the area of Zielona Góra and Wrocław. The rain will be mixed with snow in Białystok and Lublin. A maximum 8 degrees in Koszalin as well as in Wrocław, and a minimum 3 degrees in Białystok. Let's see the forecast for the following 3 days. On Friday, chances of sun only in the southwest. A rainy day all over Poland, while some snow mixed with rain is expected in Białystok. More rain and snow in Białystok on Saturday, while the rest of the country will see some showers. The temperature will hover between 4 and 7 degrees. Unfortunately, on Sunday, the rain won't spare any part of the country. A maximum 8 degrees in the northwest and a minimum 3 degrees in the east. Thank you for watching and good night.
My name is Aleksander Wierzejski and welcome to Poland Daily Business, which will be started, as usually, from the news. The Polish Central Bank has summed up this year's statistics for the number of Polish bills and coins circulating in the Polish economy. The total add value in the physical money compared to 2016 has increased substantially. At the end of 2016, the total value was estimated to be 198 billion zloty, but this year, by the end of the quarter three, that number had increased to 211 billion zlotys. The 500 zloty bill, which was introduced in 2017, is starting to become less rare. At the end of 2017, 7.2 million such banknotes could be found in people's wallets, compared to 12 million today. Serenus Energy has reached an agreement with Vital Gas and Power BV regarding the volume of natural gas the companies will produce as a result of their joint project in Moftinu, Romania. Serenus Energy is controlled by Kulczyk Investments, an international investment company founded by late Polish businessman Jan Kulczyk in 2007. The agreement reached by Serenus Energy contains the agreed price the natural gas will be sold for in the centralized Romanian gas market. Serenus Energy is conducting business deals in Brunei, Tunisia and Romania. The company has been listed on the Warsaw Stock Exchange since 2010. The Armament Inspectorate of Poland has issued the invitation to the state-controlled Polish armaments group to participate in the Swordfish program, which aims to build and deliver 3 multi-purpose frigates for the Polish Navy. The new frigates will be armed with anti-radar and anti-submarine systems and could also be equipped with guided missiles. According to the plans, Polish defense industry companies will build the vessels in a cooperation with a foreign partner, which, according to the schedule, must be chosen by mid-2019. The estimated cost for the 3 multi-purpose frigate amounts to 7.5 billion Polish zlotys. That's about $2 billion. And that's it in Poland Daily Business tonight, but stay tuned for the business interview. Poland Daily Business Edition. And tonight we will speak with Matthew Tyrmand, American writer, Polish novelist, and columnist of Prost and Do Rzeczy. And welcome to the show. We are witnessing a tidal shift in Polish-United States relationships. We used to share ideology, we used to share freedom, but now Poland is a customer for U.S. Energy products, and that changes the situation a lot.
Well, it's, this news that happened in the last couple weeks about a 24-year inked LNG supply deal from Cheniere Energy, one of the major players. In fact, their equity, the stock ticker in the New York Stock Exchange is LNG, Cheniere. Big deal, important deal. Really, in my view, the biggest news story of the year in Poland, because we've all been talking about it. It's one of the onuses of the Three Seas Initiative is to coordinate among these higher growing Central and Eastern European countries that have a similar cultural and economic profile coming out of communism and this Iron Curtain at the same time, most of these nations. Energy policy and security on the source diversity of raw energy is an absolutely key driver of Polish stability and Central European stability. We saw what Russia did with Ukraine when they were engaging in their initial revanchism and turning off the oil spigots in the middle of winter. They're not afraid to use their energy complex as a political weapon. For them, it's not economic, it's political. And so there needs to be a diversification away from Russia for Central Europe and even parts of Western Europe. Germany is undermining the entire European Union project. They talk about harmonization of both politics and economics, and then they do a backdoor deal with Russia and Nord Stream 2 for their own self-interest, and which further weakens the Central and Eastern European nations who are trying to get a foothold in the sort of global marketplace. So this 24-year LNG deal that was worked on very deeply by both Morawiecki and Duda in the White House with the Commerce Department, Wilbur Ross, with the Department of Energy, and Rick Perry, with industry directly. Morawiecki's sort of initial great legacy bullet point was bringing Świnoujście online right over the border of Germany and Pomerania as sort of an open spigot to feed the entire Central and Eastern European Three Seas complex. And now they're a Bulgarian depot is also going to be coming online. So there's a lot of hugely impactful components to this dynamic that are going to help Poland and Central Europe, not least of which is the security component of not just energy source diversity, but the U.S., now that Poland is a major counterparty in raw energy. This was one of Trump's first goals, if people recall, the first executive orders he signed after he was inaugurated in January 2017. He went to the White House and he signed executive orders to open up the Dakota Access Pipeline and the Keystone Pipeline, two major pipelines to bring raw energy from the north, from places like Canada and the North Dakota area of deep oil and natural gas source deposits coming into the complex, and creating these pipelines to bring them down south to the refineries so that then they can be shipped and sold all over the world. This was his #1 predicate. And so to have Poland come on as such a big counterparty further bolsters the incentive to get American troops helping secure the NATO peripheral border. Fort Trump is coming, and the LNG deal is one of the reasons why it's going to come even faster with higher scale behind it. Of course, having the Polish government be willing to commit their own capital to defending their border as the NATO peripheral border is also a huge sign of faith. Trump really is very happy about these dynamics, both the Polish commitment to fund permanent basing, as well as the energy counterparty deal. So, I mean, this is really, really good news, and Poland led on this. Morawiecki and Duda both worked really hard on this. And, you know, what's sad is that as big a news story as this is, nobody really wants to cover it, because for the leftist media, they can't give credit where credit's due, and to the rightist media, they can't really attack the left with this. So there's very little coverage of what I think is the biggest news story of the year in Poland, something that's going to have at least, 10, 15, 20 years of major impact.
It is important for Poland, for sure. But how important this is for United States, money-wise, volume-wise?
Well, let's be honest. The scale of the contract, though it is large, is not. It helps with American GDP. It helps with the American energy complex. Right now, the American energy complex has three major regions of exploration that are leading in America becoming the largest energy wholesaler to the world. OPEC is done. OPEC is broken. There's a reason why Saudi Arabia is trying to play really, really nice with a lot of other players, where previously they were rather arrogant about their position as the anchor of OPEC, that they could actually set global political policy because of their control of so many oil reserves.
Nobody call it monopoly, nobody call it cartel, but it is.
No, it was a cartel. But America now has got, three major areas of exploration in Texas, in North Dakota, and in Pennsylvania, the Marcellus, the Permian, the Bakken shales. They're all coming online at a very, very high pace. And Poland is one of the first major sovereign counterparties to ink a deal with this newfound reserves. So it is a positive impact, both optically as well as economically, and it just ties our two governments, our two right-of-center, culturally attuned governments more tightly together, which is very good news.
So, do you see decline of Russia as a world gas station?
Absolutely. I think that, and that is why we're seeing now new revanchist moves, because this is all they have to try and destabilize Europe. They have to go on the military offensive, because economically they don't have the same levers as they did a couple years ago, with America undercutting the entire global wholesale energy complex.
What about China?
Well, China's a different story. They're still getting their energy frequently from Pacific Rim. They are not going to be a major counterparty with the U.S. because Trump is very, very muscularly attacking them on their bad trade practices the last 15, 20 years. But China seems to be investing a lot in Central and Eastern Europe as well. We'll see where that tug of war goes. I don't have the answer to that yet.
So we have new position of Poland as a customer for U.S. energy products. And I understand that our provider will take care of us.
I agree.
Thank you very much for participating in our show. Our guest was Matthew Tyrmand, and that was it for Poland Daily Business.
Welcome to Poland Daily Culture. This week, we're going to be speaking about Chopin's influence on music and life in the 21st century. With me here today is Miss Marita. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
So, Miss Marita, you've written two books, actually, on Chopin. Could you tell us a little bit about them?
I wrote two books on Chopin. I was a co-author of those books. First was Chopin in Mazovia, in specifically this area of Poland, and it was kind of guide. So I was following Chopin footsteps, places where he really was, places he visited during his life, his journeys, and I was also searching his everyday works, like cafes, bookshops, and everyday trails, as we could say. His habit to walk in Warsaw between, his home in the university area today, until the statue of the royal castle and the statue of the king. And it was really nice to find exactly to follow his footsteps and to find exactly places he visited, not places that commemorates them, because sometimes we have a kind of thousands of legends connected to places visited by Chopin or stories about Chopin in not only in Warsaw but in other places in Poland. So my idea, my task was to discover which was the historically based fact, not the legend about Chopin's day.
Mm-hmm. So that was the first book?
That was the first book, and first book was the first part of the second book, which was generally already about Poland. And the third one is not published yet.
There's a third. Okay.
There will be, I hope. I wrote it many years ago, and I'm still doing some research. And doing guides is like never-ending work. Everything changes. So it was divided for two parts: historical part, which is also is changing because we are developing, we are searching about Chopin, and we have new facts historically. And then I was trying to describe a contemporary state of the place. Of course, adding pictures and doing research. So in both ways, in historical field and in contemporary field, there are changes. I did it 10 years ago. So now it's time to do it again.
just sort of with relation to your books, where are they most popular? In Poland or in other countries?
So they were translated into English first, then into Spanish, and there were plans to translate. You mean books? Yes.
Yeah.
I think that we had a kind of success with this and kind of institute bestseller book, because it's handy guidebook, very easy, really handy book, and with many pictures, historical and contemporary pictures. So we sold like a lot of books. But I think that usually tourists wanted to buy this book.
You're thinking Polish tourists? Or?
No. I think foreign tourists.
Okay. And could you tell us a little something about how you first became attracted to Chopin, the man Chopin, his works, etc.?
I think it's really strange, because I started from history, from historical part of his life, and it was a kind of homework in musicology when I was studying to try to make a project about the book. How would I make a book about Chopin? So I did this homework, and then I sent it to the institute. They approved it, and that's why I started. And first, I was attracted to Warsaw in 19th century, to Chopin as a man, to history of his life. And then I discovered that somehow the music I was not so in love with, because I really love more jazz music, I love Latin music, and not exactly the Chopin music, but I was studying just musicology, classical musicology. So then I discovered then I'm really, every time I'm closer to the music, and it moves me. More and more. I was like, I don't know, 25 when I discovered that I really love this music, and there is a field in me to understand this music, or to feel this music that moves me. But it doesn't mean that it's the music for teenagers or kids. It could work, but somehow for me, I had to find my way to this music, to create my space, to understand it, to like it.
Hi, I'm Phil Goss with Poland Daily. We're here at the Royal Castle in Warsaw today to talk to the historian and the curator, both responsible for the exhibit Znaki Wolności, or Signs of Freedom. Continuing our talks through Polish history with Dr. Krzysztof Jabłońka. Dr. Jabłońka, for most countries in World War II in the European theater, conflicts ended on May 8th, 1945. But tell me, was that the real end of the war in the Polish experience?
Polskie doświadczenie przede wszystkim dotyczy spotkania z Armią Czerwoną.
Above all, the Polish experience involves meeting the Red Army. The first meeting, from what people say, was actually quite good. The Poles took in the Russians as liberators, but these same soldiers, rejoicing with vodka, told the Poles, "Watch out, because the NKVD will be here in 3 days and your freedom will end." This explains the specificity of Poland, that it was conquered a second time, 3 days after being liberated by the quietly arriving
3
NKVD.
dni po wyzwoleniu przez cichcem wjeżdżające oddziały NKWD, które nie tylko aresztowały, ale
Not only arrested, but also killed en masse Poles who were deemed to be enemies of not just the Soviet Union, but the system. To this day, it is not known where the residents of Augustów are. Poles opposed this system en masse by, for example, not taking part in the agricultural reform.
Masowo przeciwstawili, zarówno biernie, nie uczestnicząc w żadnych akcjach, chociażby reformy rolnej, jak i czynnie, czyli dziesiątki tysięcy...
Tens of thousands of Polish soldiers went back underground, organizing themselves into an active resistance movement.
Ruch oporu. Ponieważ próbowano narodowi...
Because the nation was being told these soldiers were outlaws, enemies of Polishness, they were referred to as the cursed soldiers.
W dość szczególny sposób żołnierze wyklęci przez...
Cursed by the communist system because they were undeterred. They steadfastly kept their oath and faithfulness to the Republic. Once they had all perished in battle, the role they played was taken over by the institution of the Polish family, which preserved and then passed on patriotic values to future generations.
So, Dr. Jabłońka, tell me, what role did the church play in all this?
Właśnie w tym drugim etapie Kościół katolicki...
In this second stage, the Polish Catholic Church, which for a long time since the partitions had been a folk church, a church deeply embedded among rural and working people, which was an exception in Europe, moved to a form of passive resistance.
Przeszedł do oporu biernego. To w rodzinach śpiewało się patriotyczne pieśni.
Families sang patriotic songs along with Christmas carols. Families taught their children real history and warned them that the teacher in school was lying. The families kept souvenirs from those who had died during the Second World War and long after it. This is why the post-Second World War period is called the anti-communist uprising.
Okres powojenny nazywa się powstaniem antykomunistycznym. Kończy ten okres śmierć ostatniego niezłomnego żołnierza, Józefa Franczaka.
That period comes to an end with the death of the last unyielding soldier, Józef Franczak, known as Lalek, who dies on October 23, 1963. In 1966, celebrations of the 1000th anniversary of the baptism of Poland began throughout the nation, led by Cardinal Wyszyński. He became the spiritual leader not only of the church, but of the nation.
Wielu ludzi przychodziło na mszę świętą, na uroczystości, mówiąc: ja wprawdzie jestem niewierzący.
Many people went to Mass admitting they were not religious, but were also against the communist system. The entire nation was united around Christian values, and those values ultimately won. Paradoxically, they were also what saved the communists. The Poles could not take revenge on them because their faith, the very faith the communists were fighting against, prohibited it. This is how the nation passed through the most tragic Red Sea of communism.
Tak nasz naród przeszedł przez najtragiczniejsze Czerwone Morze komunizmu.
Thank you, Dr. Jabłońka. A truly wonderful exhibition named Signs of Freedom is currently on display here in the Royal Castle in Warsaw. It takes a closer look at the difficult years in Polish history between 1914 and 1989, a time in which Poland suffered through the First and Second World Wars and 45 years of communist occupation, but also experienced 21 years of independence between 1918 and 1939. We had the pleasure to talk to exhibition curator Professor Łukasz Kosowski about the Polish resistance against Stalinism after the Second World War and the role played by the Catholic Church in those years. Dr. Kosowski, after the war, Poland fell to the communist side of the Cold War, as it were. How did that happen? What tools did the Soviet Union use to force Poland into their system? And how do you show that here in your exhibit?
It's an extremely dramatic moment in our history, and perhaps I'll use a metaphor that Professor Legutko already used, comparing Poland to a patient having a cruel operation done on him. The patient is put on the operation table, he is cut in half and has his head cut off. After this, he is supposed to still be able to function. The cutting in half is the one half of land in the east going to the Soviet Union, and the other half, known as the recovered lands, being artificially sewn on to the patient.
Druga połowa, czyli tak zwany ziemi odzyskane, zostaje sztucznie doszyta do tego pacjenta, który leży na tym stole i odcina się mu głowę, czyli kasuje się inteligencję.
The cutting off of the head is the destruction of the nation's intelligence, the part of the nation with historical awareness. No nation in the world would survive such an operation, but Poland
Nie
did.
przeżyłby takiej operacji, nie pozbierałby się po tym wszystkim, a Polska jednak się pozbierała, więc to jest ten moment.
That is the moment. These are the boundary conditions of this situation. In practice, this looks quite brutal.
Wojna, czyli wojna podziemia niepodległościowego.
The war of the Polish underground state continues. It's very intensive from 1945 to 1947. The elections are rigged by the communists, and communism takes control of the
Warunki
country.
doprowadzają, że komunizm zapanowuje nad tym krajem i można powiedzieć, że kręgosłup Polaków zostaje wtedy złamany.
It can be said that the Polish spine is broken. We show this in a symbolic way. The loss of Eastern land is shown with an installation of hundreds of photos showing the disappearance of Polish customs, the disappearance of national treasures, landscapes and so on.
Zanikanie obyczaju, znikanie dóbr narodowych, pejzaży i tak dalej. I to jest właśnie utrata tych ziem wschodnich. A z drugiej strony pokazujemy terror.
On the other side of it, we show all the terror taking place in armed battle with the communists, that was still taking place, something many people don't remember or simply have no idea about.
Albo nie ma pojęcia.
If we move forward just a bit to the 1950s, we see that the art style known as social realism came into play in Poland and indeed was accepted here. And yet there was still some type of movement against it. How was that counteracted within Poland, the socialist idea of social realism?
To znowu skomplikowane.
This is once again a complicated period and difficult to define. The new system rules the lands. There is still a resistance. There is a modern installation dedicated to the crimes of the court, verdicts given against Polish soldiers and Home Army commanders.
Sądowym, czyli wyrokom na polskich żołnierzach czy dowódcach Armii Krajowej nadal trwa w latach 50.
Which still took place in the 1950s. This reality is covered by a heavy layer of communist propaganda, and thousands of people eventually end up believing it.
Że tysiące ludzi w końcu tej propagandzie wierzą. Jest jedyny człowiek,
There is one man who can be treated as a symbol that searches for a way out of this situation, and that's Cardinal Wyszyński.
który szuka wyjścia z tej sytuacji. Dochodzi do totalnego zderzenia między Kościołem a państwem.
You get a clash between church and state. The cardinal is detained, and that's when the Śluby Jasnogórskie prayer is written up, a religious way to get out of the situation.
Z tej dramatycznej sytuacji, ale od strony religii. Ta właśnie religijność,
This religiousness, criticized by some in the church as very simple or common, turns out to have the power of dynamite and corrodes communism.
że ma siłę dynamitu i koroduje komunizm. Od tej strony ta korozja następuje i jest zwieńczona.
This corrosion takes place and is stopped with the celebrations of the 1000th anniversary of the Polish state in 1966. On one side, millions of Poles attend the May 1st communist celebrations, and on the other, millions of Poles at Częstochowa celebrate the 1000th year anniversary of the Polish state and the baptism of Poland.
Państwa polskiego i chrztu Polski.
Thank you, Dr. Kosowski. We've seen some of how Poland has struggled for freedom in the 20th century. Join us next time here at Poland Daily. I'm Phil Goss.
Welcome back to Poland Daily Travel at Coco and Roy Restaurant in beautiful downtown Warsaw. I'm here with Jeff and with Nick, and we're continuing our conversation about Christmas tradition in Poland. After a while, we're going to sample some beautiful Polish Wigilia food. That's Christmas Eve food. The most important day of Christmas in Poland is, of course, Christmas Eve. Stick with us on Poland Daily Travel. Merry Christmas. So the main difference between Poland and the United States, apart from stockings and raised kid expectations maybe, is that Christmas is celebrated on Christmas Day in the United States and the UK, and on Christmas Eve
here in Poland.
And that's a big difference. And we're going to talk about some of the food and why Vigilia is the way it is a bit later. But I also wanted to ask you one thing, Jeff. What's the biggest holiday? Is it Thanksgiving or Christmas these days? Because it's a close-run thing, isn't it?
I think that for everyone it changes, but Thanksgiving tends to be the part of the holidays where the stress doesn't set in, the commercialization, and everyone's just happy to be with each other. They care about the food, and by the time we get to Christmas, I had to buy presents, I had to spend my whole paycheck, and there's some wonderful, more eclectic songs about not being too happy with Santa.
What songs could you sing a little bit for us? One of those songs?
Oh, that might be asking a lot.
Maybe in Italian. You're half Italian.
I am half Italian, but yeah, that might be asking a lot, and some of them might not be appropriate. But I do recommend listening to John Waters' Christmas if you want to hear them.
John Waters' Christmas. You think that's
he did a wonderful Christmas CD of songs you'll never hear.
Which is a good one. Favorite Christmas song?
Silent Night.
Because they're quite different here. The beautiful carols here, but they're quite different. Yours is Silent Night?
Yes,
I like Silent Night as well.
Yeah? I like Walkin' in a Winter Wonderland by Dean Martin.
Oh, a little modern.
Does that make me strange? I don't know.
No, I think this is fun.
Is it okay?
I can't believe that both Nick and I like Silent Night, two different generations.
Okay, what's your favorite thing about Christmas? What's the thing you really like?
When family gets along, it is a beautiful thing. It's the spirit of it, the celebration, not necessarily the religious undertones, but having the family and just, it's a celebration. It's similar to how Thanksgiving is. It brings people together. You have the snow on the ground. Oh, if you have a white Christmas, there's nothing more beautiful than a white Christmas. So maybe that's actually my favorite song.
I agree. It doesn't happen a lot unless you live in Canada, I suppose.
Yeah.
Have you had a lot of white Christmases in your lives?
Not very many.
Yeah. Another great song, Bing Crosby.
and I think in England I can seldom remember a white Christmas. Maybe one or two.
Maybe one, yeah.
Or two in all those years.
It's rare, isn't it? And I thought when I came to Poland that there would be a lot of white Christmases, but it hasn't come true.
It's got rarer here as well over the last.
It's often balmy, isn't it, around Christmas?
Exactly.
Not today, but...
no, but there's not much snow today. It's cool, but it's not because of a lot of snow.
Yeah, even the snow that came today is not sticking.
Yeah. Well, I don't. Is there a forecast for snow? I don't know.
I haven't
heard.
Lots of rain.
Yeah.
I did see the rain forecast.
What about the tradition of Christmas? There's a lot of people in the United States or even in England or a lot of other countries, they can't say Merry Christmas anymore. Or it's frowned upon to say Merry Christmas, and people have to say Happy Holidays. Now, I'm not against saying Happy Holidays, but I don't think it should be against the law to say
Happy Hanukkah to me. I'm going to say Happy Hanukkah to you.
Exactly. I
but
feel
it
the same
isn't
way.
against the law to say Merry Christmas. I mean, this is just part of this sort of PC terror which is destroying Western civilization.
I don't think we'll run into that in Poland, though. They will say Merry Christmas.
In Poland, everybody says Merry Christmas, Wesołych. How do you say it, Nicholas?
Wesołych Świąt.
Wesołych Świąt.
Yes.
I'm not
which
ironically
is translated roughly Happy Holiday. So.
Which is kind of, it means happy, Świąt is holiday, isn't it?
All right, so then that just throws my whole argument out.
I know.
But I think it's holiday in the original sense of holy day, in fact. If you do
holy day.
You do the translation,
And also, sometimes I noticed in Poland that Easter is called Christmas. The translation is Christmas. Some people call Easter, what we call Easter, they say Happy Christmas or Merry Christmas. Because it's also Wesołych Świąt.
Well, Happy Holiday.
Yeah, it's the same. So both of the religious days, because that's why we're here, because it goes back to religious beginnings. I mean, the trappings, as you were telling us, Nicholas, are a bit different. Coming, say, the Victorian trappings we have. Was it Coca-Cola who invented the idea of Santa Claus?
Santa Claus in red.
Is that true? I heard
something.
No,
the idea of the red with the fluffy was the Coca-Cola.
It was Coca-Cola.
So what was Santa Claus wearing in Finland?
I think before then he wore green or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
As depicted.
Chris, how many different names can we think of for Santa Claus? There's
Kris Kringle.
Kris Kringle and
Father Christmas.
Father Christmas. That's what you say in England a lot, isn't it?
Father Christmas or Santa Claus.
Santa Claus.
I think
Kris Kringle. Those are the ones I think.
In Russia, they have Grandfather Frost, but that's probably for a different reason.
Grandfather Frost.
I do think that has to do with certain times.
Yeah, that was a different regime.
Especially
and you still need to have some time of holiday to look forward at the end of the year.
Yeah,
exactly.
So what's the importance of the tradition? Because we think of it as a time to go buy a bunch of presents and things like that. To have family around, all those things are fine, exchanging gifts, all of that. But do you feel a kind of a deeper spiritual feeling at Christmas, or is that not important to you?
Well, I think it is important.
Or do you think it's not important these days?
Well, I think a lot of people.
It's not a requisite. What I'm saying.
Yeah, well, it's not a requisite
in most people's lives.
For most people, they've obviously forgotten. It's just another. I mean, in a funny sort of way, you might say it's a return to the pagan idea of the midwinter festival, which of course the church decided, we're having a festival anyway, so we'll actually make it to celebrate the birth of Christ on this day, because then everybody's already having a good time. We might as well overlay our own celebration. And I think nowadays you could argue with the commercialism, the decline in the West at least, or in most parts of the West, not actually in Poland, ironically, of sort of the religion being a part of people's lives. It is becoming a sort of overindulgent midwinter festival again. But I think certainly in Poland, and for many people outside Poland and elsewhere in Europe, Christmas is still, I think, important for the religious reasons.
Yeah, I like to go to church. I like to go to the midnight mass.
Yeah, I go to the midnight mass as well. And
you have to be careful though. Half the churches don't have bathrooms. I've made that mistake before. After way too much vodka, which vodka is not normal on Polish Christmas.
Yeah.
Most houses are dry, but it seems if foreigners are there, they do like to indulge. But going to the church for the midnight mass, I've made the mistake of going in the back. No bathroom.
I'll take a note of that. Note to self, no bathroom in church.
Yes.
Yeah, I can remember being on my knees in the church, and praying, you have to do it so many times, and then a long lesson or something, when you're on your knees, my knees are killing me when I was a kid. And I remember one time leaving the church, and as I was leaving with my parents, the minister, who knew our family well, he looked down at me and he said, William, you can sit up on the chair if your knees are hurting you. It's okay.
Oh, that was the best thing you ever heard, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was very nice of him, but I was determined more than ever not to do that, not to give in. I wanted to be like the adults.
Very good.
Yeah. Well, there's something ascetic about this, isn't there? And something you're not there just for yourself.
Exactly.
I think that's what Christmas is, isn't it?
I think so.
It's not something just for yourself. We give gifts, we think about others, we get together with our families. And I think that's universal. So stick with us for the next episode of Christmas in Warsaw at Poland Daily Travel. We'll be back at Coco and Roy. Stick with us. I bet you can't guess what we have for Vigilia in Poland. The only way to find out is to stay tuned to Poland Daily Travel, our Christmas extravaganza from beautiful downtown Warsaw.